This ties directly into a pseudo tangent, which is another shower thought, but I think we've started to touch on it, which is like the power of having a reference document. This can divert a little bit away from that forum post, but I think the content still can ring true as helpful terminology and advice. But having a reference document for your world, even if it's a living document, like you're not supposed to, especially if it's a homebrew world, it's going to change. Like you're going to go, I don't like that, or you're going to go, oh, I want to add this element, or that didn't really work, and you just scrap it, and that's good. But having it in writing, so you can, and in one place, so you can always go back to it, is tremendous. I have notes and notes and notes and notebooks filled to the brim with stuff about IO that I've now taken and I'm starting to consolidate into one big document, like a campaign setting guide for all the ages, and then a specific guide for only the 6th age, so that book 2 of Grey Owls has access to that reference document. And what it's starting to really clarify is not a point of regret, but a point of growth. That, man, if we had this in book 1, I think we would have avoided a good many problems that had presented themselves, or I would have been able to speak to them stronger. And it comes down to this really important point that when you're a DM, when you're a player, when whatever, but if you're jumping in and playing in a new setting, it is important for you to commit to the DM and commit to the type of setting that they're trying to use, the type of tone that they're trying to achieve. Because by committing to them, and like with John's new stuff, committing to that and trying to clarify, I sent him a couple messages, like, I just want to make sure that I have the nations right, because I don't want to misspeak about it. I don't want to have the wrong information and then, be an idiot about things. Like, I want to make sure I've got to make sure I'm right on this, that this is how it works, because I want to play in that sandbox, and it's very intriguing to me, and I love the idea of the stories that can be told in that, but they need to fit. I need to make a character that would exist in that world. I'm not going to make a mockery of that world. I'm not going to make something that's the opposite, or as a clown. If he's trying to make a serious campaign, I'm not making a cartoon. And that's really important, I think, going into it, especially if you're an experienced player and you're used to making a lot of characters and you want to try out all these new concepts. Cool, okay. Make sure that they fit the tone. Make sure that they commit to the tone that is intended by the DM. Make sure you speak to the DM and you don't show up with something that's going to clash immensely with what is there. And it saves a lot of pain. It saves a lot of miscommunication. It saves a lot of discord and clashing if you commit to the DM. And it also starts to build, again, that back and forth of trust. I really appreciate being involved in that conversation of, you are the people I can trust with this world, because I'm not going to break it. I'm not going to try to break it. I'm not here to do that. And I wanted to make a character that would fit inside of it, so that he could navigate the world, not like as intended, like as a pre-written story, but that I'm not going to do things that are going to go against the framework of the world. I'm not going to say things that are like, well, of course that's that, and what are you talking about? That's not helpful. Whereas I think some of the clashes that existed in Grey Owls, for all of its merits, could have been fixed by having a reference document and a stronger session 0, or having a follow-up session 0.5 with people that missed session 0 and didn't ask questions about it. Like, I had some players that missed the session 0, they missed the meet time, and then showed up with characters that were a little out there and weren't quite cemented in the world. And we played it, we figured it out, but there were a lot of moments of, what are you doing? And those clashes could have been avoided, I think, if I had a reference document, had a world, had a discussion, and had set aside a 0 and a 0.5 before we started playing. Make sure everybody's on the same page. And those crazy questions of, well, I want to make this cartoon in your Cloak and Dagger campaign, and then I can literally go, reference document, I'm not going to allow that. And I think that has also played a role in trying to deepen and also make it more things that I'm comfortable with. Recognizing that, no, this is how I'm going to run this, and this is how it is, and you can play with me if you want, but these are the rules. And if you don't buy into those rules, you're not committing to the DM, you're not committing to the story and the stories that are possible inside that world. You're just trying to break it. You're trying to be the weird one. And that can have value too, if it fits and if it's not breaking that trust.
Just to again reiterate, this thing that we're talking about is personal testimony. We're talking about implementing a specific strategy that had very positive outcomes in our experience. So what I don't want anyone to take away from this is I need a 70-page reference document to be a great GM, right? This was, and also especially if you're a starting GM, you don't need to make a whole complicated world with political factions and this, that, and the other thing. And you don't need to, you see what I'm saying? So this is the result of the past, coming on 4 years of training that we've done it and practice and play of D&D, and really asking the hard question of what creates a satisfying experience, what creates a fun experience where everybody is respectful and empathetic, and how do you establish trust with the DM right off the bat without having to go through too many growing pains, right? Yeah. So, and that's the key thing is there's a lot of times, like Grey Owls is a great example of that, where I can't keep track of half of the weird names with X's and Z's and Q's, and I just can't. I'm not that kind of player, and to me it's more stressful to sit there and try to take comprehensive notes. That's not an energizing thing for me, right? And to make that if you don't have some kind of common resource you can point to, then it becomes a restriction on play, that if you're not doing this, you can't take full advantage of the information about the world and stuff, Which
is why I'm taking the break now, so that I can at least build that resource, even at the end game, so that at least it's there for everybody. Even it's better late than never. And
the other thing is, what it does is it removes the resistance to committing to the world, right? Like if you give each player every tool imaginable to be able to immerse themselves in the world and history you've created, then it's removing any resistance that they might create, or any excuses they might create for themselves that end up undermining the efforts you've put in with your world building.
It was something you said struck a chord with me there. It was to do with note taking, because I'm a player that takes avid world building notes during my sessions because I want to remember what happened and what the significance of certain things are. And so when we talk about a reference document and basically providing these pre-rendered notes almost of the world for our players in advance, it reduces the need for me to take those notes. Like I used to take notes that were 4 or 5 pages long because I just felt like there was so much that I was trying to learn about the world. Not that it was stressful or anything. I enjoyed it, but I'm interested now when there's a reference document on the board. I'm interested now in taking fewer notes because I want to experience the game moment to moment instead of just jotting every single thing down all the time so that I remember it later. Why not now, right? Why not just think about it now?
Thank you so much for listening to some of our podcast highlights. This podcast is part of the Darkmoor Podcast Network. If you want to support the content creators, feel free to visit our Patreon. And please, game responsibly.